All right, welcome to another edition of Around the Edge. I am Andy Treno, filling in as your host today. Happy to be here with Susan Wiesner. Susan, yay! Susan, we've liked you so much at Edge. We've hired you twice.
You have, yep.
So this round, when did you start the most recent round with Edge?
January of 2022.
Okay, so almost 2 years as a loan officer with Edge, year and a half. And then the first time you started, how long ago was that? 6 years?
It was 2017, September or October. I found out about a job at the front desk because you posted something on Facebook.
Yeah, so tell me about that. You know, obviously I have my perspective of that, but tell me what was going through your mind. Where were you at in life?
Yeah.
How did you end up here the first time back in 2017?
My oldest daughter had just started preschool, so I had more time. I was staying home with her and doing part-time jobs. So I was looking for a 9-to-5 type job. Didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Let's be clear. I don't think you were quite looking for 9 to 5. It wasn't like full-time. You wanted to dip your toe in, if I remember correct.
Yeah, so it was an administrative front desk job, and I replied to you on Facebook about would I be a good fit or am I qualified for this job? And then I think I met with Chris Hacker the next day.
Yeah, and I don't know if I laughed when you said, like, am I qualified for this? But I know when Chris asked me, when he came in and said, hey, you know, Treno, one of your friends, applied. What do you think? Is she qualified? She's really got no experience in this industry. And I definitely laughed at that. And I think I said something along the lines of, like, we're all probably going to end up working for Susan someday.
Well, I mean, I did come from a culinary background and hospitality background, so definitely nothing in the mortgage realm prior to working at the front desk at Edge.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, on paper, he wasn't wrong, you know.
No experience.
What are you doing here, Treno? But, you know, I knew, so backing up a little bit, you and I have history. I've known you for quite a long time here.
Thank you for not saying a number of years.
I can't count that high. I've got shoes on.
Okay.
But we go way back, so let's bring it back. Tell me a little bit about your story growing up. Give me the quick synopsis of how Susan grew up and the background for you.
Ooh, okay, the abridged version. So Treno and I both grew up in Minneapolis, went to Edina. I left Edina High School and was living on my own since I was 17. Went into restaurants, hospitality, cooking, restaurant management. And prior to meeting my ex-husband, I had been a traveling chef. So I went to places like the Caribbean and Alaska, private islands, cooked on boats, did a lot of fun stuff, and then had my now oldest daughter, and I couldn't really just strap on a backpack and take her to Alaska for a summer and cook for 12 hours a day.
Cook on a boat?
Yep, yeah. Yep. So I stayed home with Vivian, and then, like I said, when she started preschool, I needed a job so that I could use my brain again and not just be a mom.
Sure.
Yeah.
So going back to that history in hospitality, obviously it's customer driven.
Correct.
You're the face of what's going on. So a lot of interaction with your clients, but then specifically for you being on a boat, you know, it's not like people are coming in and go, all right, we cleared out table 6 and thank God we got rid of them. You're stuck.
Yeah.
And kind of like being in a mortgage transaction, you know, you get in and
Correct.
you may have great people, you may have not so great people, but man, we're on this boat until this thing closes.
Correct. Yeah, I really am appreciative of all my time in customer service and hospitality because you have to learn to smile through the not fun moments and make it work. You know, you're on a boat, you forgot to order milk, you got to make it work. You are in a mortgage transaction with a client who you're having a hard time communicating with. You need to make it work. You need to find a way to just communicate and get it done.
Yeah. And I can tell you that's something that I've seen from you. You know, we all have difficult transactions, but you've always got the smile on. Your customers always seem to walk away happy. And, you know, no matter what's going on in the transaction, they seem to come away happy. So what's something you're doing to keep that throughout a transaction?
You have to do a lot of listening and setting expectations up front. Whenever I want to set an expectation with a client, I ask them what their expectation is, and then I tell them how we are going to manage that together. So things like, I don't like texting. I do not like texting my clients. I don't like the expectation of an immediate response. You may be in the middle of an income calculation and someone's texting you because they want to know what their monthly payment is going to be. Well, I have a hard time deviating from one thing. I don't like the interruption. So I set really clear communication expectations with my clients up front. I ask them what their preferred method of communication is before I tell them mine. So I'm listening and then replying. But it's really, I take notes about my clients' personalities, notes about how old their kids are, things like that, so that it becomes more personal. And I also then share with them, the names of my kids and where I'm from. And it's not just here's your fee worksheet, here's your closing date. We establish a relationship. So for me, it's definitely relational and not transactional, and a lot of that is achieved through communication and dialogue.
Sure. Yep. So I hear a lot of listening. I hear a lot of developing bonds. And I think that's so important, especially in the market that we're in, where people aren't excited to look at their interest rate. They're not excited to look at a fee sheet. And it's pretty easy to put together a fee sheet, hit send, and then shut off your phone and run away because I don't want to talk about this. It's ugly. But that's not how you handle it. That's not how you build a relationship.
No. And I have also set expectations with my realtor partners, how I like to communicate and how I like to be introduced to clients. So it's a very streamlined but great process where I like to have an email of introduction so that I can actually talk to the client and get to know them. It's normally a 15, 20-minute phone call, sometimes longer, before they even submit their application. So I'm not just pulling numbers and looking at someone's name and not knowing what our ultimate goal is without having spoken to them.
Sure. And that's an important thing to think about. We're not just order takers here. We're advisors. So someone could fill out an application and they put in, their desired purchase price and down payment, and that's what they think is the best for them. But this might be their first transaction. It's up to us to talk to them, to figure out what their needs are. Common thing I mentioned, down payment. Sometimes people are draining their savings account thinking they got to put 20% down. But having that upfront conversation, you may figure out these people need an emergency fund. They got 3 kids. 15% down is not that much worse. That mortgage insurance isn't that scary.
Right. Yep. Or there's no place on the loan application to ask people what their desired monthly payment is.
Right.
And I like to work backwards from the monthly payment versus just we want to buy a $500,000 house, but do you actually know what that monthly payment is?
Right.
Yeah. And does that work with your family?
No, I just saw a $500,000 house on Facebook and I want that.
I want it. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, I don't know. When my clients go under contract, I send them a book about the community, so specific to whatever area they're living in. And then I also send the kids a Berenstain Bears Moving Day book and tell them I'm excited to welcome them to our community.
Awesome. I love it. I love the coloring book. That's such a good connection.
Yes.
So I've got a plumber here in town that we had out when I first bought my house, left a coloring book. My kids know that plumbing company.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant. I love that. That's just building a lasting connection. Is that a Susan coloring book, or is it just a random thing you picked up?
It's a Berenstain Bears Moving Day book.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's just to tell them, help set the expectation even for the kids of, what's going to be happening. And it may be a little overwhelming and scary, but at the end there's something fun. So I've gotten great feedback from families receiving that book because moving is a daunting process for anyone, especially when you have kiddos. So yeah, I do a lot of military loans, so relocation, people PCSing in. And kids get moved around a lot, and it's just a nice way to welcome them to the community.
Yeah, and it really does, show that you care, which you can't really fake. You actually care, but doing those extra steps really just makes it obvious to people right off the bat, having that conversation.
Yeah.
The coloring book, I love it. I also know just from chatting with you, you often have thoughtful closing gifts.
Yeah.
You really go above and beyond in that regard from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Have you... where did you pick that up, or is that just something from hospitality that carried over?
I think it's a lot of hospitality. I used to skip school to throw lunch parties in high school. So I've always liked taking care of people. I was, I think, a mother figure before I became a mother. So, things like handwritten notes and remembering people's names, birthdays, anniversaries. That's just something that I think is intrinsic to me that I've loved to apply to my work. It's work isn't just black and white. There is some emotion to it, even from the mortgage broker perspective. It's not just a transaction, like I said, it's relational, which is one of the reasons why I like being hyper local and originating specifically where I live and welcoming people to the community.
I like it.
They're my neighbors.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so piggybacking off that, you said hyper local.
Yeah.
So you moved across the country
Correct.
to some place you'd never been in your entire life. And within the matter of a couple years, you are totally ingrained into that community. You're a trusted professional. How did you do it?
Good question. I think when you move somewhere and you don't know anyone, going into real estate and the mortgage industry, my friends are now the people that I work with. I didn't know anyone, so I started volunteering, even at my daughter's school, worked with Habitat for Humanity, and just started going to open houses, introducing myself. I hosted events before I even had referral partners to just try to attract referral partners and meet people.
So sounds like developing those same bonds you were talking about with your customers, you started that way with referral partners.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear you once say I asked someone for business.
No, I don't think I ask people for business, period. I like to build a relationship around trust and camaraderie, establish if we are a good fit for one another, if our kind of mentality of how we should operate is similar. And then if we form a friendship, people naturally want to do things with their friends and work with people that they like. So I don't think I've ever asked anyone for business. I asked to meet them and establish a rapport with them. And if we become friends, then we start to work together.
That's awesome. That's a great way. And just like with your customers, that's a bond. That's not transactional. It isn't, we split this lead and now I owe you a deal.
No.
They're working with you because, like you said, you're friends.
Yeah, and we work well together. So, you establish a cadence and a rhythm with each one of your referral partners that may be unique to them. But it's all built off of trust, and we have the same goal. We want one another to succeed, and we want to have a great purchase transaction for our clients.
I love it. Yeah. And when you like the people you work with, you communicate well, that whole process is so much easier for the customers too, because everyone's in sync and it's just a fine-tuned machine working for them and makes it easier.
Yeah, and it helps the client feel more like they have a trusted team when there's already trust that you can pick up on between your business partners. So it's the same thing with North Carolina as an attorney state. So the local attorneys that I work with, we have that kind of same rapport where we are friends, we work well together, and I've been very fortunate that way.
That's awesome. And customers can feel that too.
Yes.
I mean, even if you're not, directly being negative, they can sense when you're uncomfortable. So having everyone like each other, I think that's huge to the overall process.
Yeah, and I'm very intentional with how I talk about the loan and the team. It's always our loan, our purchase, our credit. It's never, I need this from you. It's, we need this for our purchase to help kind of push that feeling of we're all in this together. We are a team. We're all working for you together. So I found that also helps when you have to talk about negative things, like if someone has bad credit or if we're missing assets for closing, it's our credit. Our credit could use a little bit of work. Let's work on this together. We will do this together. And then I throw a little bit of a human twist on it too. And I let them know, my credit was, X at one point because I had a lot of medical bills and this is how I took care of them. This is how we're going to take care of this for you, to help people feel more comfortable and a little bit less, picked apart, right? We're
Yeah.
getting everything from them. And I found that by giving a little bit of myself, it makes people more comfortable.
Sure. Yeah, and we're asking a lot from them. It's like a financial interrogation,
It
and
is.
you can't help. It's so easy for us. We do this every day, but you can't help but feel judged if someone's asking for your most personal financial information and
Yeah.
then literally judging where you move your family based on the score that some corporation gave you.
Right.
So I like that you're relating to them and making it. You're owning it with them.
Yes. And we don't get FaceTime with clients very often.
Right.
So, how are you introducing yourself as a human being versus just, a lender robot?
Sure.
Yeah.
I like it. That makes a lot of sense, and I think it's good that you own it with them and relate it. I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. So let's talk about you moved to a new city. You were with this great company, Edge Home Finance.
Yes.
I'm going to move across the country. I got my license. I'm no longer working at the front desk. I'm going to be a loan officer. Let's get licensed in North Carolina. And then...
And then Edge couldn't be licensed in North Carolina because there were antiquated laws at the time about branch managers needed to be licensed for 3 years, and there needed to be a brick and mortar with a branch manager in North Carolina. So I started off in retail lending versus with Edge Home Finance because I couldn't be with Edge due to the North Carolina laws.
Sure. And we don't see many people leaving brokers to go retail in this day and age. So tell me about when, you had your experience, you cut your teeth at a brokerage, not originating loans, but you saw everything that happened because you were at the front desk, and the good, the bad, and the ugly were all right in front of you. And then you go work retail. So what were some differences that you saw when you moved to retail?
Less control of my business than I wanted. I very much like being able to manage the whole customer experience, manage the whole file flow, and I couldn't really do that in retail lending. I felt like I was in a box, and if I tried to go outside of the box, I got my wrist slapped. So, just a lot more, I guess, corporate BS.
Sure.
And things that I couldn't do that I wanted to do. It was very limiting, both professionally and financially.
Sure. Yeah, so less control, and then less options.
Correct.
For your customers. I know we had some conversations where we talk about pricing too, and what did pricing look like traditionally?
Higher. I remember one of the first times I came back to Minneapolis, and I was an LO and met with you at the old office, and we were just comparing side-by-side pricing on a VA loan, and you were beating me by half a point, if not 3/4 of a, sorry, not point, but percent on rate.
Yeah.
So that was eye-opening. What else? I remember being asked why I wasn't coming into the office as often when I was in retail, or my voicemail message says, if you've reached me after 5 p.m., I'm with my family. And I was asked to remove that voicemail message because I needed to be more available. Or if I was going on vacation, why does it have to be approved? It was basically because I wasn't making the company money, so they wanted to assert a little bit more control on my hours in my life, which I don't have now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and let's back up to something you said. You said because you weren't making the company money, but you were doing well. You were making them money.
So if I wasn't closing 10 loans a month because I wanted to work less over the summer to be with my family, I was asked why wasn't I working more.
Sure.
Yeah, so I was making money, and I was
and
making
you were producing
them money. Yeah. But
you were a producer, and it's like that antiquated bank mentality of like, we're a bank, we're open 9 to 5. Which, if you were a bank and people need to deposit checks, that's one thing. But you can run this business from anywhere. That's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. Yep.
So coming back to Edge, then you got the freedom back. You're able to run your own business.
Flexibility.
Yep. but really your only time originating loans was in retail.
Correct.
And I'm sure it wasn't all roses coming over, but tell me about, when you came back to Edge as an originator. Give me the good and the bad there.
I think anytime you try something new, it's a little bit stressful.
Yeah.
You have an idea of something and you may find out that you were wrong.
Hold on.
Oh, wait,
You
I
were
just
wrong.
said I was wrong.
Can we cut that? Save that. One time Susan was wrong. Okay, continue.
Yep. It's very different because when you are a broker, you own 100% of your business and you get to create the systems and the process and what you want the customer experience to be. So I think I was overwhelmed at the amount of options that I had. Down to stuff like how are you going to have your application come in? What is your email signature footer going to look like? These are all things that you have control of.
Yeah.
So I think setting up the business, I think I wish that I maybe would have taken more time to structure it versus structuring it as I went along. But yeah, the options were overwhelming. But that's a good thing.
Yeah.
To come from not having any options to now there are so many options, it's overwhelming. So, talking to other people at Edge about what systems they use, what their processes are, what software they're using was really helpful. I called you several times. I called Tom several times, other loan officers that I had known from when I was at the corporate office. So there's ways to get help and ask questions and lots of people that you can reach out to.
And, you bring up something here, the culture with Edge. So you mentioned you call me, you call Tom, you call other loan officers. It's always been my experience that people here at Edge are picking up the phone, they're willing to help. But I've been here for a long time. I know a lot of people. So it sounds like you haven't had the same experience here at Edge.
I have. I will call people that I don't even know.
Sure.
Because I see that they do a lot of VA loans. I have a VA question. I just went through my call log of the normal people that I call, and now I'm going to call this person. So it's been a great way to expand my network of colleagues. I am on my own in Moore County, North Carolina. It is me and my office, and I have an administrative assistant, but otherwise I'm the only Edge person there. But
Sure.
I don't ever feel like I'm alone or don't have someone else that I can talk to about anything work related.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. We are in a virtual world, but at the same time, I come to this office every day. I like having people around for the same reasons you're talking about, asking questions. And no matter how long anyone's done this job, they can't know everything because it changes constantly.
Yeah, and that's one of the awesome things about it is it's not boring. Every scenario is different. It's one of the things that I enjoy the most about what we do is you never know what your day is going to look like when you start your day because you don't know who's going to call or what the underwriter is going to want or if there's a new guideline that comes out. So I enjoy that.
Yeah, keeps you on your toes for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it's good to have the resources and be able to reach out. And I know you answer your phone a lot too.
I do.
You've become a leader here at the company. A lot of people look up to you. How does that feel when you get that phone call that someone else needs help?
It feels good, especially when I can actually help them or talk through something. A lot of the phone calls that I get from people are about originating, but also about how do you manage the work-life balance too. So it's not just professional work questions. People call to ask questions. I'm having a problem. This realtor isn't sending me any leads, but I've done all their open houses. What would you do in this situation?
Well, Susan would just directly ask them for business.
Yeah. No, I would just keep trying. And then, you realize when you've reached a threshold of you are giving and giving and giving and you're not getting anything back. So then that's the conversation you have with the real estate agent. I would really enjoy working with you, but I don't feel this is a two-way street. This is supposed to be a partnership, and it's not a partnership. So I'm going to stop investing time in this partnership.
Yeah, and it's almost like a relationship.
Correct.
You ask the girl out 10 times, get the hint. She said no every time.
Right.
Move
on
on
to somebody else.
and be friends. And that you're going to run into each other because that's another thing. This is a small industry when you're working on a local level like you.
Yeah.
I'm certain you run into the same realtors all the time, the ones that you do work with and you don't work with.
I do. it's really important to not burn bridges. If something happens, address it immediately. I like to find the solution before I present the problem, and take ownership. No matter how good you are at your job, there are always going to be things that are out of your control, that you still need to take responsibility for.
Absolutely. And as we said, this business is always changing. Things come up, and there's no one in this industry who's actually busy working that hasn't had a problem file before.
Yeah. Or if someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer, just admit it.
Yeah.
Great question. I don't have the answer on hand, but I am going to call you back within 30 minutes with an answer, because I want to make sure that I'm giving you the right information.
Sure.
And people respect that.
Yeah. Yep. And obviously you got to know the basics, but when you get beyond what that's such a good way to approach it, so that you're not giving bad information. It's so hard to wind something back if you've told someone that, hey, this will work, or whatever it is. Trying to wind that back is almost impossible.
It is. And again, when I started, I didn't know anything. I went from the front desk to, I got licensed. You do your 24 hours of testing, and then you're supposed to go out and take on what is the biggest purchase of these families' lives. And it was daunting. So I did a lot of just reading through guidelines or listening to other loan officers, asking questions, to the point where it was probably super annoying. But just getting as much information as you can, and knowing where to store it too. You can't just read something and then think that you're going to remember it forever, but you can cut and copy and paste something into a document and put it into the right folder so that you can reference it later.
Sure.
Yeah. So I like the information. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I like to read. So
You pay attention to the details.
Yeah.
Going back to when we grew up, if I hadn't read the book, I could count on you to have color coordinated notes that I could skim through 8 minutes before the test. And
Yep.
you were so organized that it was like Cliff Notes on steroids.
Yeah.
Another thing I remember when you started working at Edge, and I don't mean this demeaning, but you were just the front desk person, with no industry experience. And you walked into my office one day and said, "Have you read this broker agreement with XYZ lender?" And I'm like, "No, it's not my job." I'm sure you remember it. Tell me about that, because that really says a lot about how you operate in the detail that you take.
Okay. I mean, my recollection of my first day on the job was I defrosted the company fridge because it was thick with ice, and you couldn't fit anything in there because the thing hadn't been cleaned in forever.
Because there's just a bunch of guys hanging
I was
around.
down on my hands and knees with a screwdriver, I think, hacking ice out of the employee fridge.
Yeah, and
because I couldn't stand it. But yes, attention to detail is very important to me. I don't want to ever second guess myself. If you take a loan application, the client's out shopping for 3 months, I want to know that the work that I did up front is right, and that the numbers that I'm running are right. I leave myself breadcrumbs, notes about the client, notes about how I calculated income, so that when I come back to it, I don't have to do it all over again. I'm very methodical. I don't necessarily time block, but I do, start out my day each day with writing out the things that need to be done, and then as the day progresses, reprioritizing. What else? So you were mentioning the broker agreement.
Yes.
I don't remember how many lenders Edge was signed up with at that time, but it was growing and growing and growing. And we get the broker agreements, and some of them had some crazy early payoff penalties that were buried in the broker agreements and other things like that. So that's something that Chris Hacker and I worked on early on. He was sending me stuff to review, and then, like you said, highlight and give him the cliff notes, kind of. Yeah.
And to me, where that sticks out, that absolutely was not anything in your job.
No.
That was an email that went through, and to do the bare minimum and show up and do your job was to forward that to Chris and tell him to sign it. Mm-hmm. You went above and beyond. You wanted to know how it worked, and then you saw something that just didn't seem right, and you brought it up. So going back to this conversation, it's all the things that you're talking about. It's doing the research, it's paying attention, and then you admittedly didn't know if this was normal or not, but it didn't smell right, so you asked the question. And I remember Chris, like, he's like, Susan, print that. You went in his room, in his office, and shut the door, and you guys were hammering out pretty much every broker agreement after that.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of paperwork to read through, but yeah, we did it, and I think things like that, and his attention to detail also helped make the company better.
Absolutely. And, that's a good point. So when you got here, Edge was a lot smaller than we are now. We've grown. Things have changed. I think a lot has changed for the better. Tell me what you've seen change that you like about Edge.
Communication is one of them. Transparency is another. And again, the options are overwhelming. I know that I have the ability to do any type of loan that I need to do. That's not my business model, though. I focus on purchases, and because of where I'm located, it's VA. But the number of VA lenders that we have, or if pricing between a couple of lenders is very competitive, I can tell them what the other person's pricing is and what are you going to do to get my business.
Sure. So you can leverage all of our partnerships to say, hey, lender A, I'd rather work with you, but lender B has this.
Yeah, or they're giving a lender credit towards the appraisal. Your pricing is the same, but they're paying for an appraisal. What are you going to do?
Sure. And now we're back to that communication again.
Correct.
Don't be afraid to ask. Your rep will tell you if there's nothing they can do.
Well, and then even the relationship with the account executives and the reps, that's something that needs to be nurtured. You need to listen to how they communicate and how they respond when you communicate, and know who you are going to work well with, because when push comes to shove, if there's a problem, you need to know how to communicate to that person, how to get a hold of them, how quickly they respond, and if they'll actually work with you on the problem.
Absolutely. So, both sides of the equation, going down to the consumer, going up to your account reps, underwriters, we're all on the same team here. Communicate. You don't want to scream at someone because they messed up an underwriting condition because they're human. And then the next day you're asking them to rush a file.
Right. 100%. I have gotten feedback from people, account executives, other LOs that, when they have a problem, they try to yell over the problem versus trying to fix the problem. And in the heat of the moment, we can't have that emotional response of, I am so angry, or I'm frustrated, or you really just need to address the problem head on. And then once the loan closes, maybe circle back to your team. This worked. This didn't work. This is what we're going to do differently next time.
Sure.
So I also, every single month, go over my systems and my processes down to my email templates that I send. Every single time we get a conditional approval, how do you respond to that? Yes, you can do it through your CRM, but I also have email templates for things that I send where I have highlighted the message part that needs to be changed to insert the appropriate part for each transaction. But, as business evolves and you change, you need to be changing and updating your systems too.
Sure. And the templates are a perfect example. You're detail oriented. You could spend an hour writing every single email that you send out. But creating templates is going to save you time. You couldn't do the volume you do if you were trying to rewrite the story every single time.
Correct.
Yeah, I like it. Kind of brings me to another thing you've mentioned a couple times, work-life balance.
Yes.
You've mentioned your voicemail that says is it 5 o'clock or 6
5
o'clock?
o'clock?
5 o'clock. Right to start this interview, you said you wanted a 9-to-5 job. You made it a 9-to-5 job.
I did.
It's so common in this business to have people that say 24 hours a day, call me. I will wake up from a deep sleep and leave my crying baby to get you pre-approval. That's not you. How did you develop that, and how does that work for you?
Initially, when I was very eager for business, I did not respect my own boundaries. And I was that person who, I had a newborn baby, and I would hold her and I'd be working away, and I regret doing that because it took time away from my family, and I work for my family. I enjoy helping other families, but I'm a single mom. I have 2 little girls. I drop them off at school in the morning. I go to work. I want to be able to pick them up at 5 o'clock, and then they're in bed by 8 o'clock at night. So time with your family is very precious, and if you don't respect that time, other people aren't going to respect that time. Your real estate partners, your clients are not going to respect you as a human being or something more than I joke, a lender bot, a lender robot.
Yeah.
So it's also part of setting clear expectations and personalizing your business. So again, my clients know that I have little girls, and I tell them when we're having our initial meet and greet call, it's part of setting the expectations where, I am available to you 9 to 5. If you do call me after 5 o'clock and I don't answer, understand it's not that I'm ignoring you. It's that I'm probably feeding my kiddos, or they're in the tub and I need to make sure their heads aren't going underwater. It's not that I'm ignoring you, it's that this is my priority at that time. However, if we need something in an emergency, your real estate agent knows how to get a hold of me. If we need to send a pre-approval letter because we have an offer deadline and it's after hours, yes, I will be there. But if it's just to talk about my income calculation for your file, or because you want to see a new scenario because you're going out shopping in 4 days, that's an email, and I'll reply to you in the morning, and we can schedule a call.
Sure. So you set the clear expectations up front. You already mentioned that when you meet, you get a personal relationship. You tell them about who you are. So do you get much pushback from setting those somewhat hard limitations?
I actually get a lot of compliments on my voicemail. It's just, you've reached Susan Wiesner, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, if it's after 5 p.m., I'm likely with my family, and we'll return your call the next business day. When people hear that for the first time, more often than not, they compliment me. And then it starts a dialogue about their family or what they like to do.
Sure.
I have had a couple of clients that have said, that's not going to work for me. I need to be able to get a hold of you at 8 o'clock at night because maybe I'm stationed overseas. And my reply to that is, I'm happy to schedule those calls, but I'm not available 24 hours.
Sure. So you can make the exceptions.
Correct.
Like you said, you do a lot of military, so time zones. The deadline offers that we all get, you can make the exception, but you set the expectation that that's not the norm.
Right. Yeah. And it's definitely made my life a lot better. And I think when you respect yourself and your boundaries, other people do it as well.
Yeah. Yep. And it personalizes you. And I think that helps, your referral business, the fact that you are friends with the realtors you work with, you're friends with your clients. You're a human. You're not an app.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
All right. So you've been in the business for 6 years now.
No, not even. I mean, if we count my time at the front desk, yes, but I've been licensed for just under 5.
Just under 5 years licensed. You are one of the top producers at the company. You're well respected in the community you work in. What's next? Where do you see yourself in the next, we'll say 5 years?
At the beach? It's, again, I work for my family, and I work to help other families. So I am very happy with where I am in the community. I want to do more advocacy, and I'd like to be more involved with housing. One of the things that I want to work on with the state of North Carolina is the North Carolina Housing and Finance Agency is limited to only retail lenders, not brokers, because of some of their rules. So I think that's going to be the next thing that I take on, is helping my clients through helping the broker community.
Awesome. So I hear a lot about helping people and changing the industry. I didn't hear anything about numbers. I didn't hear anything about a bank account. So you just want to make a difference.
I do. And I want to be happy with what I'm doing and feel proud of what I'm doing. And just get to meet more wonderful people and spend more time with my family. And yeah, I mean, if you ask my oldest daughter, Vivian, what I do for a living, she will tell you that my mom helps people get money for houses.
That's awesome.
And I love that.
Yeah.
It's not she's on her phone all the time or she's typing all the time.
Yeah.
It's that I help people get money for houses, which is, I think, a beautiful way to summarize what I do. I help people finance their homes, and homes are important.
That's awesome. And, the stuff that you're talking about with legislation, like that's not closing deals, that's not making money, but, I've found, and it goes all the way back to an old Zig Ziglar quote, you help enough people get what they want, you'll eventually get what you want.
Yeah.
So you're not sitting here saying, I want X number of units, I want X dollar amount in commissions. You're just trying to help people.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a great talking point with clients too. Working on the veterans tax exemption for North Carolina, over 80% of my business is VA. I'm not a military spouse. I don't know much about the military, but they are my clients. They are my neighbors. So I feel a responsibility to help them in any way that I can.
That's awesome. I love it. And, you've talked about the flexibility you have with Edge. You feel like Edge has supported you in doing those things as well? And
Well, I don't know, Treno.
wait, that seems very personally directed.
I was just thinking about ethics committee and other stuff with AIM. But yeah, I think Edge has definitely helped with that.
Okay, and you mentioned AIM. So tell me about AIM. Obviously, I know, but
You do.
share with the
So
greater audience.
The Association of Independent Mortgage Experts, I didn't even know that they really existed coming from retail. And then being independent in North Carolina, it was a great association to join to learn more about the broker community and to meet other brokers. Again, we all work virtually, remotely, but I mean, I think I know a broker in almost every single state.
Because of AIM.
Because of AIM.
Yeah.
Yep. And going to the events where they are promoting education and resources and advocacy is really wonderful. All the time that I was in retail lending, it had never crossed my mind to do something like the tax exemption bill or to work to change laws to better the broker community or housing options. It was all about units and numbers, which that's not me. That's not my business.
Yeah, like show up to the office and close your door and hide your notes because someone else might steal the secret sauce.
Gosh, yes. Yep. And we don't do that. If something is working for me or it's not working for me, I share that with my colleagues.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy the dialogue of how can we help one another?
Yeah. Yep. And with helping, you mentioned the legislation you're working on, and I know from talking to you, you're on the phone with, I think, 4 people, all of you at different companies, competition in the same market. And tell me how that goes when you get these bitter rivals on a Zoom call together.
It's fun. I find that I become self-deprecating just to make people laugh. But I think that's kind of the finding the common element that we're all human beings working towards a common goal. I think it's great. A little bit of competition is healthy, but I think I'm competitive with myself and nobody else. So
and you can
we
collaborate.
focus on the task at hand. We have very different opinions, different approaches, but then we all talk about which one will get us the best results. So that's one of the things I enjoy. It's intelligent conversation and debate and healthy camaraderie.
Absolutely. And we all do have different opinions, and our companies go about things differently. AIM brought us together or you guys in this instance together to come up with a goal, and people have different approaches. I did learn something earlier in this interview. You have been wrong at least once. So, if they've got a different way to approach it, maybe there's a better way, or, let's take a little bit of this from yours, a little bit of this from mine, and, let's make this a better way to approach this.
Yeah.
And it's cool that AIM has brought us together like that. Like you said, people across the country. We've got that organization to make those connections, to raise money, to lobby for things. Ultimately, they're going to help our consumers. So thank you for what you've done. Another thing, I got asked to be the chair of the ethics committee. And I realized, I'm great at ideas.
Did you ask or did you volunteer?
I was asked.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not volunteer, and I wasn't quite voluntold, but I don't know that I had much of a choice. But no, it was something I was happy to do. It was an honor to be asked. I mean, for people in our industry to tell me that they look up to me as an ethical person and they want me to help was an extreme honor. But the first thing I thought is I need someone here to help me to keep this organized, and you were the first person that came to mind. So share a little bit about what we've done on ethics and what your role has been there.
Yeah. I mean, you referenced how the members of AIM are all from different companies that have different approaches and different perspectives, right? So as an association, we needed to make sure that we all had the same ethical guidelines or kind of compass that we were following. as to how we were going to work together, how we were going to advocate for our clients, how we were going to interact with other brokers even, because there is competition, and it needs to remain respectful and productive, right? It's so easy when you are upset with someone to blur those ethical lines. So, with the code of conduct that the ethics committee created, we're hoping to establish, brokers are better, and this is why we are better, because we adhere to this code of conduct. We use this code of conduct for all aspects of our business. And it's not just the business, it's how we need to be presenting ourselves outside of work as well, because I may turn off my phone at 5 o'clock, or that's what my voicemail says, but I'm still Susan Wiesner mortgage broker, and that's what people know me for. So I don't want to be going out in an Edge Home Finance t-shirt and making a fool of myself.
Thank you for that. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Yep.
Keep that one behind closed doors.
Yep. I put on another company's t-shirt when I want to do that.
You still have the t-shirts from the retail company?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
If it's girls' night, we're going to get a little wild. Like, put that
Yep.
on. Oh, that's great. That's great. So for people who don't know about AIM, what can you say about going to AIM events? How has that helped you?
Again, because I'm alone in my office, it's really helped me to be around like-minded people, have conversations that maybe I wouldn't have with myself in my office by myself, but just learning about brokers and what we can do, what our options are, how we are going to individually and collectively grow our business on the broker channel. And they're fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a little fun too.
We
in
have
the
a little
evenings.
fun. Yeah. It's not just work.
And what I see there too, you talked earlier about, Edge and how people are willing to pick up the phone and answer questions and share what they're doing. The folks that show up to AIM events are the same way. I mean, here's people literally opening up their playbook of how they have been successful in an extremely competitive business and sharing it with you. It's just a great group of people that come together and share to make our whole industry better.
Absolutely.
So to anyone that hasn't been to an AIM event, come to Fuse. Edge people that are watching, we're going to have our company party there. Don't miss Fuse in Vegas. It's a great event, and you absolutely will learn something that you will take home and add to your business. And if you don't, you did something wrong.
Well, yeah, and it's not just the information, it's the relationships. I mean, I've met people at Fuse that I still talk to maybe weekly.
Yeah. Yeah, some of my best friends this day are people that I've met at Fuse, and I may only see them once a year, but like you said, we talk, I pick up the phone and I call them, and they're just good people.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad you've had the same experience with AIM and with Edge. Before we go, anything that you want to share, a tip, something that you're doing right now to be successful in this competitive market?
I think one of the best decisions that I made early on in my career was that I wanted to be purchase driven. And because it is relational for me, when refinances were crazy early on in my business, I was still focusing on purchases and my realtor relationships. And I'm very grateful that I did that, because when the market turned, people who were focusing just on refinances did not have a book of business anymore. And they were really struggling. And then all the loan officers in the world were reaching out to all the realtors, asking
all the loan
them
officers
for
that didn't even
business.
exist 2 years ago. I mean, it was everyone who's been here for 10 years.
Yep.
And then every bartender who got fired when their bar showed down got their license.
Correct. But really being true to your relationships and maintaining those relationships, because our business ebbs and flows. And you need to remain constant in what you are doing and what your approach is to succeed. So again, I really am happy that I made that decision early on, and knowing what I wanted for my business, which was the relationships and focusing on purchases, because refis are going to come and go, but purchases are what is forever, right?
Yeah.
People are always buying homes, but refinances are subject to the market. So yeah, just being true to those relationships.
Sure. Even when it's not easy and it's not there, make sure you're making those calls.
Correct. I was still having client appreciation events and realtor appreciation events when the market turned, and rates were higher, so there weren't as many buyers. But that's a great time to work on your systems and your relationships.
Yeah, and I think, in business and in personal life, we all remember those people who were there for us when it was tough. So if you're relationship driven like you should be, that's huge. That's a great takeaway.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I've got to say, it's been extremely impressive to watch you grow in this business. So happy to have you here at Edge after your little jaunt into retail for a little bit. So glad you made it back. Glad I made that Facebook post and
I know.
you decided to come work with crazy mortgage people. And like I said, I'm just impressed and really proud to watch you grow as a professional. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thanks for letting me host today. It's been fun as always. And tune in next week for another episode.